and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I'm always having a bit of a trouble at the beginning. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of August. I read 9 months? No. I read 9 books in the month of August, which is fine. Like, it's not as many as I've read before in the month, and actually it feels low in terms of the fact that I've always had like 2 or 3 books on the go at once, which I mentioned in my September TBR is what I'm not doing in September. In September I'm just going to read 1 book at a time and listen to an audiobook at a time, etc. But I had like loads of books on at the same time. I also had quite a lot on in August. I guess I was in Ireland for a long weekend and things like that, so yeah, potentially that might be why. But hey, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I read 9 books and 2 of them were 5 stars, so well done. I will start with 2 books that were not 5 stars, however. Not that there was anything wrong with them. I gave both of these 2 stars, which is just a sort of, yeah, I enjoyed it, but there was nothing more to it than that for me. These are both published by New Island Open Door Press. These are short stories or short novellas written by Irish authors. This is Cecilia Ahern, Mrs. Whippy. Cecilia Ahern's a very popular women's contemporary fiction author, and I'd actually read this before but didn't realise until when I finished it. I kept thinking, oh, this is sort of semi-familiar to me, but this follows Imelda. She's 46, her husband has recently left her for a younger woman, and she's being completely walked over by him and her sons, and trying to be as accommodating as possible to them when they're not really taking, like, they're not, what's the word I'm thinking of? They're taking her for granted, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, sort of a moralistic tale with a happy ending on the end of this one. Patricia Scanlon, again, another sort of moralistic tale with a happy ending. This is about a woman called Kate, who husband has lost his job, and they're sort of trying to scrimp and scrape around Christmas time. She's got a friend coming to visit, who's always had this wonderful life, and she's concerned that she's like the experience that she's going to be able to give her isn't going to live up to her wonderful life, and she's sort of like made a turkey curry and has held on to a pack of mince pies and has got a gift, has re-gifted a gift that somebody else has given her, etc, etc, and in the end it turns out that it's all going to be okay. So yeah, quite enjoyed it. Obviously we're not even meaning to reading a book about Christmas in August. I was delighted about that. So yeah, 2 stars each, both okay, like nothing wrong with them, but just okay. The next one is also by an Irish author, and then so ends my Irish authors. The next one is Wilderness by Roddy Doyle. Now, I mentioned this in a book haul recently, so I won't talk about this very much. I actually picked this up on the way home from Ireland when I was flying back from a wedding I'd been to in Carrick. Flew back from Knock Airport. If anyone's ever been to Knock Airport, it is a proper low little airport. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere, really. It's very fun. And I picked up this book by Roddy Doyle. I have read like very short books by Roddy Doyle. I've never read anything actually, a novel by him or anything, and I'm aware that I absolutely should read The Commitments because I've heard it's amazing, and I believe that's part of a trilogy, so I must look into that. That was my little hand looking into it. But this is about Tom and Johnny and their mother, who are going on holiday to Finland whilst their dad and their stepsister stays at home. The stepsister is going to be meeting her mother going to be seeing her mother for the first time in a really long time, since she left the family home when she was much younger. So you're following sort of like a modern family, in that there's stepsisters and stepmothers and things like this, and the 2 boys and their mother on holiday in Finland, and the family at home. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very cutesy little children's book, and thought it was a nice message, and set in snow, so I enjoyed that as well. There's a parcel man here. I don't think he's for me, but we'll power through. The next one was one of the books that David picked for me to read, because David picked my TBR in August. Now, I think I only read 3 books that he suggested, but I will keep an eye on those books for the rest of the year, because it's a bit cheeky of me to ask him to pick me some books and then not read them. But anyway, the one he did pick for me is Hotel Silence by Olda Ava Olofsdottir. This is translated from Icelandic. It is about a chap called, I've forgotten his name, Jonas, who is very unhappy with his life. His mother's sort of descending into deeper and deeper life with dementia. Him and his wife have split up. His daughter and him don't have the greatest relationship, and he decides that he doesn't want to be on this planet anymore. So he takes a flight to a war-torn country, with nothing else other than the clothes he's got on his back and his toolkit, and then when he gets there he goes to a hotel and says like he'll give himself a week before he ends his life. And while he's there he takes on a few little jobs at the hotel, and he gets to know a few people around the hotel and things like that, and somebody that he's sort of like potentially sexually interested in goes away for a bit and then decides, and then he thinks, oh well, I'll wait for her to come back, and just basically just something, it keeps happening to sort of make him maybe think, oh maybe I'll hang on a little bit longer. And yeah, there was a few points in this where I was just like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to carry on with this, because I didn't love it. It was another 2-star, but I am glad I finished it, and I feel like this might be the first book that the first ever Icelandic translated book I've ever read. But yeah, it was fine, but I didn't love it. What I will say as well is I feel, not that all books should be like this, but it was there was no chapters. It's masses and masses of just of text. It's sort of like, it's split sort of just before halfway point, where you get a bit of them. But so yeah, I feel like there was times where I was like, oh, I don't really want to pick that up because I know there's not really going to be any point for me to put it down, which I know sounds awful, but I guess if you've got a lot of books to read, those sort of things become important. So yeah, 2 stars I gave that. The next 2, however, are 5-star books, and the first one is one that David picked for me to read as well, and that's What Would the Spice Girls Do by Lauren Bravo. This is a non-fiction book written about what it's like for women in today's society and the influence that the Spice Girls have had on us guys. Now, you know that I'm a really big fan of the Spice Girls, so to sort of like, I was surprised and touched at how much I related to this. It's split into sort of like lots of different chapters, mainly to do with Spice Girls lyrics, but like Friendship Almost Never Ends, the Spice Girls and the Power of the Girl Gang, Hold On To Your Knickers Girls, which is one of the best lines out of the film, the Spice Girls and Confidence. It talks about, and it's not all like rosy, everything's wonderful. It talks about like potentially the Spice Girls selling out, and every single, at one point in the 90s I remember like every single thing you could ever buy ever had the Spice Girls name on it. And yeah, I really loved it. I really liked it. And it sort of ends on a point sort of talking about like what the women they were then and the women they will go on to be. And yeah, for me, I like sort of social commentaries anyway, so a social commentary that is linked to something else that I really fucking love, the Spice Girls. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be good, but I was surprised that I found it very good, and I've given it 5 stars. So yeah, really enjoyed that. And it's only a little dot of a thing. I really feel like it's a really cute little gift. Might be appearing in my gift guide. Oh, don't think about that yet. And the next one is another little short book, a little short sort of gifty book almost, and that is Our Rainbow Queen by Sally Hughes. This is published by Square Peg, and Square Peg are a publisher that publish sort of like bizarre non-fiction books, picture books, things like that. And this is, as you can probably see from the title, from the cover here, it is the Queen Elizabeth II, our queen, our current queen, and her in different outfits throughout, and it goes through a sort of like rainbow palette and then onto sort of monotones at the end, and also patterns, which was probably my favourite section, particularly this dotty hat, and I just really liked it. I really got into watching The Crown a few years ago. I wouldn't say I'm a total royalist, like my bloody father, he loves the royals. But I'm very interested in the history of them and the sort of bizarre laws and rules that they have to live by. And I feel like this is a really good insight, as well as including something that I love, which is fashion and colour. So yeah, I picked this up on Cozy Reading Night and loved it. Didn't really want to put it down, was just loving it so much. And yeah, when I finished it in the bath and I was like, I really enjoyed that. It was just a really good feeling, and I just really enjoyed it. And I feel like this is something that I will continuously go back to. Here's some of her in purple. Yeah, just beautifully made, beautifully pulled together. Very much enjoyed it, 5 stars. So the last book I've got to show you before I move on to the 2 audiobooks that I listened to in the month of August is Honor Girl by Maggie Thrash. This is a graphic memoir of Maggie Thrash's childhood, when she, well, not all of her childhood, but like childhood that she spent at a camp where you sort of competed, or the whole big thing was to become the Honor Girl at the end of the year, and it's her coming of age story, and her sort of coming to like realising what her sexuality might be, and she has a crush on one of the counsellors there, who seemingly potentially feels the same way, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It was a reread for me, and the genre category is the genre that I picked for Patreon book club, because the way I do it is that I give my Patreons a genre and give them 2 books to pick from, and then they vote for which one, and then we discuss that at the end of the month. So it was On a Girl and this one Summer, and the genre was summer graphic novels, which I thought was quite cute because it was summer. But yeah, it was a reread. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I like the art style. I like the sort of simple art style. What I will say though on a reread, I did realise, is that like a lot of these blonde characters, like a lot of them look the same. I'm talking about 4 or 5 of these blonde characters, and particularly Erin, who is like one of the main characters, look a lot like, I mean look, there you go, there's a little blonde corner. Like all of these people look the same. So yeah, there was a little bit like that. And also something I realised the second time round on discussing it, which is always why it's always nice to discuss books, is that there is a few dream sequences in here which I didn't realise were dreams and hadn't actually happened. So after I'd read it for the second time, a little bit more of the story sort of made sense to me. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was really fun to discuss. And yeah, if you're interested in joining my Patreon book club, I will link all the details down below. The last 2 books I read, I won't go into too much detail about these because they were audiobooks and they were both rereads. But the first one was the first book in the Cormoran Strike series. It was The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. Robert Galbraith is the nom de plume that J.K. Rowling goes under when she's writing the crime series of Cormoran Strike. Cormoran Strike is an ex-army officer, amputee, who is now leading a life as a private detective, and you follow him and his, in this book, secretary, try and solve crimes. And in this book, try and solve, yeah, not crimes, but like, yeah, cases. And in this book you're trying to solve the case of a famous fashion model called Lula Landry, whose death had been written off as a suicide, and her brother, her adoptive brother, comes to Cormoran Strike and says, I don't think it was that, I think there's more to it than that, and you follow the ins and outs of that. So what I really love about these books, and there's 4 of them out now. I don't know how many there's going to be in the end, but what I really love is Cormoran and Robin's relationship. That's like the big pull for me. So it was nice to revisit this book, because now their relationship has moved on a little bit by book 4. So it's nice to sort of go back to grassroots and relive their early stages of getting to know one another. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And also the audiobook is perfectly delivered by Robert Glenister. He's an actor and he does some fantastic voice work on this. I really admire his voice work on this. He does all 4 of the books. So yeah, I actually went out and got Silkworm, which is the second book in the series, straight away, because I just loved listening to it so much. I was like, well, I'm definitely going to move on to the next one straight away. And then the last book I listened to was His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, narrated by Philip Pullman, and it has a whole cast as well. So all of the characters have different actors playing their voices, and then Philip Pullman reads the stuff in between. This is the first in the series of His Dark Materials, following Lyra, sort of, and her quest. I can't even begin to sort of put that in a little box of what happens, because there's so much that goes on. But the second sort of trilogy that Philip Pullman is now writing, the second book in that trilogy, you bloody think I would have learned what it's called, something Commonwealth, that is out in October, and I was hoping to have re-listened to all of the books by the time that that book comes out, because that book follows Lyra when she's an adult, and the books follow Lyra when she's a child. So yeah, that's the plan. So that's also just a little, if you haven't already watched my September TBR, just a little idea of 2 of the books I'll be listening to in September. Yeah, in September. So those are the books that I read in the month of August. What did you guys read in the month of August? Have you read any of these books? Have you read many 5 stars lately? It's always really nice when you get 5 stars, and those 2 were really good, fun books, and I really enjoyed reading them. So yeah, that's it from me, and I will see you all again on Sunday for my favourites from the month of August. Oh god, do you know what? It's finally cooled down. I've got windows open, I'm getting a breeze in my hair, it's absolutely lovely. I'll see you on Sunday when it's September. Bye!